With the season finale of the Carolina Panthers taking place in Atlanta, would the Carolina Panthers and Dave Canellis go in hoping to secure a pretty darn good draft pick while putting on a good show? Or would the Panthers go in and just try to spoil the Atlanta Falcons' divisional hopes? Want to see how the Panthers fared? Stay tuned to find out on Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Panther Nation. Thank you guys so much for joining with us again. Of course, you're hanging with your man, Mr. CeeLo, for this season finale. I hope you guys are doing great. Happy New Year to you all. Hope you guys are doing good, because I've got mixed feelings right now, and I know some of you, if you're like Dennis Cox and Chris Lee, you're loving this. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the foreseeable future. I'm not an individual that looks at things in the present tense. I'm congratulate my football team. I think the Carolina Panthers, you're great. I appreciate you guys going out there working hard. But I think this hurts us a little bit. As the Panthers were able to pull out a 44-38 victory in Atlanta, finishing this series even. As we look good. But I'm going to go through and let you guys know what I thought of the game, which, as I said, I wish we would have been playing like this a couple of weeks ago. It was good to see, but I wish we had not come out of there with a win. And many of you guys are going to be like, what are you talking about? Well, before I get into the game, I want to let you guys know what we lost. In 2 games, we won 2 of our last 3 games, you guys. We're going to miss out on Mason Graham, the big defensive tackle that, in my opinion, is going to be the guy that could play next to Derek Brown in our system. Yes, Ichiro Avero needs to stay, and I will break that down as well. But ultimately, what this win does is it hurts us. And I'm not sold on Abdul Carter being that next guy to go next to DJ Wanham. I mean, in my opinion, he's too light. I just don't think he's going to translate well to the next level. I just don't. And that's where it looks like we're going to end up. I think Graham is the guy we need to get, because we can actually get a couple of good pass rushers later on, but that's neither here nor there. But I will break that down in a later show. But I want you guys to think about something really important. With these 2 wins, we went from number 1 to 8th. Guys, I can't stress this enough. A lot of people are saying this is going to build a winning culture. But ultimately, look, your best players weren't on the field today. And I know what people are going to say. Well, maybe we don't need to do that much after all. But the reality of it is, we should have been playing like this all season. When you get to a point where you're eliminated, moral victories mean nothing when you're sitting home. I mean, we beat the Arizona Cardinals 2 weeks ago. Then we get blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then we eliminate the Falcons from the playoffs, who didn't need any help. Tampa Bay won their game. They didn't need us to finish that game. I mean, it's a good moral victory, but the reality of it is it drops us another 3 spots, or maybe 4. So now we're hoping that 2 of the best players that would have made an impact immediately don't come out. And then the other part about it is we finished number 1. We got 2 teams that are going to trade with us. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Gerard Mayo gets fired today because he wins New England out of that number 1 pick. They go from 1st to 4th. Now, granted, more than likely, they get their player that they want. But in essence, they lose an opportunity to get some major draft picks. Yeah. And see, this is ultimately what I would have went in if I'm Dave Canellis and I say, hey, look, Dave, look, we're going to play well, but ultimately we need to get some draft capital. And I know a lot of people are going to look at me and they're going to say, I don't believe in tanking. Well, the reality of it is, why hurt your draft stock? I mean, let's keep it real. Kansas City tanked today because they didn't want to see Cincinnati. I don't care what anybody says, they tanked. But more about that on my other show, Gridiron Gab Pro Style. I'm ultimately a guy, once you're not getting to the playoffs or a shot at the Super Bowl, what else is there? Guys, comment and make a comment down below. One, if you believe we should have purposely lost this game today, or comment two if you think Canellis and them did the right thing. And please elaborate. I'm not gonna fuss with you. I'll just read it on the air and I'll, take your account into consideration. But ultimately, guys, I'm not happy about this win because we could have ended up with the 4th or 5th pick in the draft and possibly still gotten some movement with the possible trades in there. There's players that people want to trade for. But as it stands, we've got the 8th pick. Guys, and this was the same position we were in the year we drafted Bryce. Same position, you guys. Same position. And I'm of the belief there are no such thing as moral victories when you miss out on opportunity to not only better your franchise's future, but better your franchise right now. And the way you do that is you say to yourself, okay, look, people can say there's no integrity within that, but let's keep it in perspective. We didn't have anything to play for. We can't be like these other organizations that are like, oh, let's try to see if we can get a victory out of this. We got to go out there and we got to try to do what's best for the organization and ourselves. And that should have been the attitude that Dan Morgan said, look, man, we need good draft picks. And I think ultimately, yeah, we called, this is one of the best games Canellis called. But I was not happy with the outcome. And I'm happy for our players, but I'm not happy for what it looks like going forward because we need some top-notch talent. And we could have ultimately gotten that and then some had we dropped this game. And I'm not going to talk about the Arizona game, but ultimately, guys, we would have had the first pick had we lost that game against Arizona. It feels good, but let's fast forward to next year. How good is it going to feel? Or how good is it going to feel in April when we don't get the player that we coveted? Or better yet, if we wanted to get that wide receiver we coveted. We could have gotten the draft stock that we wanted. And the reality of it is we've got to be on the same page when stuff like this happens, guys. I can sit there and tell you right now, there's a lot of you not going to agree with what I'm saying. Of course, there's a lot of panelists that don't agree with me, and there's a lot of podcasters I've listened to today don't agree with me, and I don't care because they're the very ones that are going to sit there and they're going to talk about what we didn't get in the offseason and so on and so forth. Look, we don't have the we don't have the cap space just yet to go out and get the big name free agents. So that is very much why you have to. The draft is the cheapest way to get top-notch talent. And I don't care if anybody gets in the comments saying, "Oh, that's why you scout them well." Guess what? Not every position is rated equally. We did great with Trevin Wallace, but guess what? Linebacker is not a position we need this year. Now is it? Guess what? Safety is going to be a position that we're going to need. It's daggum difficult to find top-notch safeties in the 5th and 6th round. Cornerbacks, you can get away with that just a little bit. Running backs, just a little bit. But we can't afford. We put a 2nd-round pick in a running back, and he's not probably going to touch the field next year. He'll be in his 3rd year, and at the end of that year, we've got to decide whether or not we're going to do what?
Problem? You don't have to answer that question.
Exactly. Pick up his 5th-year option. Well, no, he don't have a 5th-year option. That's right. He don't have a 5th-year option. You see what that does? That's why it's so imperative, you guys, when many of you are sitting there saying, oh, I want us to win. Look, I'm as passionate as anybody gets. But when I sit here and I see these podcasters and these guys that have shows, that are just spitting out monstrous BS. I get tired of hearing that, especially from Chris Lee that said early in the year, I think he's a backup. And I'm going to find the footage because he went on his show, went on Dennis Cox's show and said 10 weeks ago, he's a backup. And I'm going to find the footage because the reality of it is he doubled down on what he said tonight, saying, I'm still not sure. And with the information I had, I'm still not going to say this and that. I'm going to back it up. Guys, how do you trust somebody who can't even admit that they were wrong and they spoke too damn early? That's one thing about me, you guys. I stuck by Bryce. I was upset, but I stuck by Bryce. Because the reality of it is we invested too much in him to just give up. You got clowns like this that are sitting out here telling Panther Nation, we need to give up on Bryce. And that just infuriates me. Because here they are now gloating and talking about, yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. That just put us down 4 spots in the draft.
You fucking idiot.
And all you can say is, I know it's going to take us down in the draft, but hey, we'll take it wherever we can get it. It means nothing.
Dumb shit. Dumb shit. Dumb shit.
Bruh.
Yeah, Panthers 44, Atlanta 38. We'll get into more about that later on, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. But I have to go on these rants because I want us to be strategic. We're playing chess, not checkers. And you get knuckleheads like that, they playing checkers. They playing checkers. At least with the New York Giants, they got enough sense to say, okay, we lost to Carolina. Guess what? Daniel Jones ain't it. Let's get him out of here. They basically tanked the rest of the season. Now, they should not have won that game they won 2 weeks ago. That's probably one they're going to kick themselves about. Because I'm of the belief, guys, if I got the number 1 pick, and I got it by a large margin, I get it. A game in the NFL, you can't diagnose or forecast whether you're going to have the ability to win one. And I get it. Those guys in those locker rooms, they may not be back next year. But the reality of it is, I can go to my owner and I can say, hey, look, man, we need to lose. I need to shut this guy and this guy down. Are you with me? I'm having that kind of meeting. I'm calling up Dan Morgan and I'm saying, can I shut this thing down? I don't know. Like I said, you guys comment down there. 1, if you agree with me. 2, if you disagree. We should have tried our best to win. And please leave good comments so I can read them. I want to understand because honestly, guys, when you get to a point when you're not even competing for a Super Bowl, I don't believe in moral victories. You can get moral victories during the game, but ultimately the outcome should not be you on top. Period. Because if you would have if it would have been to the point where you were able to compete early in the year, it wouldn't have took to the end of the year before you finally started getting it together. And then the whole Avero thing. We'll get to that at the end. But let's look at it. Bryce was amazing. Bryce was really good today. Once again, we win this game in overtime. Bryce was 25 of 34, 251 yards, 3 scores. And he also had 5 carries for 24 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, here's a historical fact, you guys. Bryce is the first Carolina Panther to throw for 3 touchdowns and rush for 2 in a single game. So much for Cam Newton. And then we see Miles Sanders had 17 carries, 66 yards and a touchdown, along with 3 grabs, 50 yards, and a touchdown catch. Something, I'm going to go through the stats, but what I saw out of Dave Canellis just really, really amazed me today. And it really looked like to me was that Dave Canellis is really not only starting to understand Bryce, but Bryce is really starting to understand what Canellis is starting to do. You're starting to see that real eye-to-eye focus coming between both of them, knowing what's going on. And now I start to wonder, do the Panthers need to go out and get another wide receiver? And that's the question that's been kind of juggling through my head right now with Coker. Even Leggett didn't play that much today. because he's still battling those injuries. I hope he goes and he gets that wrist seen about, and I think it's his ribs that's bothering him. Gets all of those things taken care of so he can be back and be at full strength next year. Ultimately, that's what needs to happen. You're starting to see that continuity between the two, and now you've got a full season under your belt. I think they need to take a couple of weeks. I think Canellis and Bryce need to take some time away from each other. And then as soon as they can get back together and start running things through one another. What they would like to see, what they think can do better. And Andy Dalton still needs to be in that discussion. I think the wide receivers need to be in that discussion. Ultimately, you've got Coker, definitely needs to come back. Adam Thielen absolutely needs to come back. Work with these guys. And see, this is the real issue that I have with the Mingo trade. And another reason that I don't like guys like Chris Lee out there running their mouths, because people start to rumble. And then that rumble starts to get back to the organization. Why is this guy here? Why is this guy here? Why is that guy here? Ultimately, we were thin at wide receiver. Very thin. And the reality of it is, when you start looking at it, at one point, we only had 4 wide receivers on the roster. When you talk about the injuries to Coker and Leggett, and that's inconceivable. And ultimately, when you start looking at what you're looking for next season, you have to have some young guys on the roster, granted, but you also need to have wide receivers on the roster. I get it. You're not running that 4 wide, 5 wide set all the time. But what I'm really loving about Canellis is he's getting more creative. He's running those 12-man personnels, and possibly you could go 13 men when you think about it, when you start talking about putting Felipe Franks in that. And I loved it. You even went to putting Brady Christensen out there in some situations when he wasn't supposed to be. And you're going with that extra guard / tight end tackle, and you're running the football. I would love to see more of that, because the reality of it is, when you start watching more of the other opposing teams, they're all running the spread offense. You come in there with something different. I don't know how to handle that. And I know what people are going to say, well, you're in the NFL, you're supposed to know how to handle that. Not when you're seeing spread all the time and all of a sudden that comes out. Yeah, you watch film on it all week. You understand that it might happen, but then when it comes in out of those 1 or 3 or 4 times in the game that you see it, I don't care who you are, it's still going to fool you. That was just like we had that run play that Miles broke, well, almost broke, where we sent Coker in motion. Sanders came right in behind it. The same play we used to run when Christian McCaffrey was here. You send a guy in, you send a receiver up the formation and hand it off to the running back. You have to continue to put defenses on notice. And that's exactly what Canellis did. I'm enjoying the offense that I'm seeing out of Canellis. This needs to go on into next season. Now, as far as Miles Sanders coming back, he's going to come back at a cheaper price tag. Because personally, I want Deontay Foreman. You heard me. Because ultimately, as beautiful as that play action where he went up the seam was, we got to see more of that. But it needs to be Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba needs to go in the offseason. He needs to call up Christian McCaffrey after he's done with his rehab. I think ultimately he needs to call him up. And he needs to say, I need to work on my receiving skills. Do I need to get on Jugs? Or better yet, call up the Carolina Panthers receivers coach. Jugs. He's gotten better. But the beautiful thing is he needs to be a threat out of the backfield. Them hands need to be good. Because that was a beautiful play by Canellis when Sanders caught the touchdown. Atlanta never saw it coming. That'd be a new dynamic in the offense, now wouldn't it? Coker was 7 for 62. Tommy Tremble was 2 for 30 and the no-look touchdown pass, or the look-away touchdown pass. And he was asked about it afterwards, and of course he chuckled about it. Yeah, I think with him back with his confidence, looking like he's got the swag that he had at Alabama, I think it's great. But like I said before, I think ultimately we could have did all that without winning the game. That's just me. We know what we have now. Jatavian Sanders, 3 for 35, and I think this needs to be a new focus now. Running the 12-man personnel, and at the end of the day, that's what it needs to be. Sanders and Trimble on the field at the same time. How many times have I been saying that, guys? I've been saying that since day one. Trimble and Sanders on the field at the same time. Sanders will go down the field. I love his downfield presence. And then you got Trimble, who's just standing back there by himself. You forget about it. The play design was absolutely flawless. Guys, let me tell you something. We got the tight ends to hurt you in the red zone. I don't know why this is even an issue. Just saying. I will say this, that this is going to be interesting to see if they can get Trimble to come back. I think they probably can get him to come back on a friendly deal. But don't be surprised if Kansas City's knocking on his door. Because he's got just about the same type of skill set. He catch football, but the difference is he can block a heck of a lot better than Kelsey can. Don't mark my words. Kansas City's going to make a run at Tommy Trimble. I'm telling you. We better snatch him up ASAP. Don't even give him a chance to test the free agent market. Looking at the defense, Damani Richardson had 10 tackles in this game, and he is just straight balling. That's why I look at people all the time and I say, you got people like, once again, I'm going to keep reference to him because he does not need to be saying what he says. Because I would challenge him, because the reality of it is you're sitting here talking about Coach Avero needs to go. The same defense coordinator that kept us in games last year. The same coordinator that kept us in games last year when Bryce was not so good, when Frank Wright was just terrible, when Thomas Brown didn't really look like he knew what he was doing. The whole organization from an offensive perspective looked like they were stuck. Then you got Avero, who's the only saving grace, the only plus we had, and here you are 1 year later trashing him. And I know people are going to say, well, he gave up the most points in franchise history. I think they said, I don't know if it was NFL history, but even if it was. Bijan Robinson had 187 yards on the ground. 170 yards on 28 carries. But here's the other problem. Let's look at it. Julian Council on Locked On Panthers made a really good point, you guys. I'm going to go down the list like I did before. Derek Brown, gone. Shaq Thompson, gone. Brian Burns, gone. Frankie Louvu, gone. Jeremy Chin, gone. Ito Gross-Matos, gone. Dante Jackson, gone. Y'all forget about this stuff. I don't. And a lot of you guys that are sitting up here telling you this.
You some bitches couldn't close an umbrella. You some bitch.
They're going to say what's on in their feelings. Chris Lee already said that. He's not going to walk back what he said because that was in the moment. And see, he was just that quick to get rid of him. This is why we can't trust what he says now about Avero. Because he could be wrong and he'll say, I'm just going by what I saw in the moment. No. That's why you don't need to have the position that you have. Because if you're going to go by your feelings in that moment, instead of looking ahead, we can't trust your judgment now, can we? Look, I'm here because if you guys felt great about this win, it's not going to feel so good in the next couple of weeks. Because you're going to look up there and you're going to say, Tennessee's picking first. we'd have the first pick if we had not won to the Cardinals and we had not won to the Falcons. Guess what? How good does that Falcons win feel like? I mean, excuse me, how good does that Cardinals win feel right now? Exactly, guys. I mean, it's only going to feel good because we look up at the scoreboard and we see, hey, Arizona just blew the doors off of San Francisco, who had half their starters on the sideline. Makes no sense, guys. And I mean, the thing is, I'm not for tanking unless there's a good thing involved in it. No way we should have went out there and won that game today, guys. We should have had a top 5 pick. Damani Richardson needs to stay. He's our answer at the other position. Now, who's going to be at the other safety? Who knows? Mike Jackson had an interception the other day. Ball got tipped up. He's there doing his thing per usual. He's a guy that definitely needs to stay. Jadeveon Clowney got a sack today. The only sack in the entire game, I might add. Yeah, ultimately, we went from being first to 6th to 8th. Now, like I said, the reason why I brought up Gerard Mayo is because the fact is he went from winning this game in Buffalo. It took him from the first pick to the 4th pick. And as I said, that is not good when you got an opportunity to make franchise-changing makeup picks. Because you did not need to take a quarterback. And there's going to be about 3 teams fighting to get, of course, who's going to be whom I presume to be the number 1 pick, which is Cam Ward. Now you basically leave Tennessee in a question mark. And now Tennessee's in the same position the Carolina Panthers were coming up almost 3 years ago. So now you have to look back and you have to say, 2 years ago. So now you have to think about something. While this win feels good, it's going to wear off immediately because it means nothing, especially when you're looking up when you're looking at the Sports Center tomorrow and they're only talking about the Detroit-Minnesota game. They're only talking about what could have been with Dallas or whoever. Meanwhile, you got clowns like Dennis Cox and Chris Lee sitting here poking fun at Coach Avero. Which, look, if he gets his walking papers, I will not be happy about that. Because here's the reality. Whether you guys want to admit this or not, Derek Brown has been his most successful when he's in this style of defense. I'm going to go ahead and make a declaration right here. If we go to a 4-3, which I'm seeing a lot of y'all out there posting, I don't want to hear this whole thing about, oh, Derek Brown's overrated. He should be able to play in any system. No, he played in a 3-4 at Auburn when we drafted him. If any of you know anything about defense, there's a big difference between playing in the 3-4 and the 4-3. I've heard so many people say that this is where Derek Brown is at his natural spot. All I'm going to say to Canellis is don't listen to the Chris Lees of the world. Because it's the same clown that said, I'm not going to walk back my comments because that was the information I was given at that time. We don't need to listen to people that are about the feels. It's about what is real. Derek Brown broke the NFL record for tackles in a season in the 3-4. I say we get the defensive lineman, Campbell out of Michigan, if he's still there. Pair him with Ashawn Robinson. Yes, bring Robinson back. Derek Brown hopefully will be healthy. And then we pair him with Mason out of Michigan. And then possibly, you can get a pass rusher in the second round. This pass rush class is pretty deep. And the way Wanham played this past year, coupled with a healthy Derek Brown and a possibly healthy Ashawn Robinson with that rookie Mason out of Michigan, Dan Avera has no excuse. Give him the chance to get his team back together. Don't give him just one game. Don't give him just one game like certain people will. Keep your head up, Panther Nation. Because I'm going to be with you. Last question for you guys. Put a 4 in the comments if you think we should give Evero his walking papers. Give me a 3 if you think we should keep him. You guys know my answer. Because I don't think one season you should get rid of anybody. One bad season you just do away with him, especially when they were one of the top coordinators in the game. Because guess what? He's going to be successful wherever. I don't want to hear this. He didn't work out here. I don't want to hear it. Let's give him his real pieces and see what happens. And stop listening to people that think they know the game and don't know the game. 44-38, you guys. As I said, this hurts, but at the same time, guys, we go into an off season with some hope, but I think that's going to wear off as soon as we find out where our draft position is and how talented of players that we're going to miss out on. But let me know what you guys think, and am I being too harsh on certain podcasters and whatnot? Yeah, I don't care, because the reality is you guys watch these guys, and the reality of it is I go based on what I see, not based on what I feel. I understand there aren't very many good defensive coordinators out there. The 3-4 system is a system that works. Pittsburgh, Baltimore still run it. And even Minnesota and Detroit at times run it. It's a system that can be highly successful with the right pieces. And the most important piece was on injured reserve this year. We've already got a shutdown corner, so that just makes it easier to plug a few of the players in. And we have them available with the first 2 rounds of this draft. You don't abandon ship. We still got it. Please make sure you comment down below. I'm still working on the shirt, you guys. Make sure that you put your name down in the comments if you become a new subscriber. Make sure that if you are a current subscriber, make sure you comment down there just to say what's up, so I can make sure I got your name down in the book. So when I get ready to do the drawing, and yes, you will get 2 weeks notice, you guys. Once I get it done, I will show you the t-shirt, and then in 2 weeks, we'll have the drawing. Also, make sure that you go to the Facebook page during the off season at Growling and Prowling, so you can keep up with all the things I'm involved in, finding out I'm going to set up a poll, who you think we should take in the first round, take in the second round, so on and so forth. Also, make sure you want to keep up with Mr. CeeLo. You want to say something negative to me or whatnot, or you want to agree with me and keep in contact with me. Make sure you go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all the shenanigans that I will be caught up in. But as we say goodbye to 2024, the Carolina Panthers have finished at 5-12, made some nice improvements. Bryce Young is our future. I think ultimately that he is the guy. We can't change that now. I'm glad we didn't change that. I'm glad that we ignored a lot of the naysayers like Dennis Cox and Chris Lee. Dave Canellis has done a phenomenal job. I think ultimately we need to stop trying to find negativity with our football team. And it's just growing pains. It's just growing pains. Stop trying to make this team something it's not ready to be yet. We're not ready to be great yet. We got maybe 2 more years. Next year, if we make the playoffs, that will be a massive step. Just trying to be a 500 team would be a nice sentiment to next season. I mean, let's be honest. Seattle won 10 games this year, and they did not make the playoffs. So it's not going to be an easy task to win 10 games, let alone make the playoffs. I think ultimately the NFC has become competitive again. I think everybody's going to look at what happened with Cincinnati, and honestly, it is a tribute to the competitiveness that has gotten there. NFC used to be able to have a pretty bad record, and I get it. Atlanta finished 8-9, and Tampa Bay finished at 9-8. Now that's just division. Now, honestly, we could very well challenge for the division next year. I'll tell you right now, if we could get some of what New Orleans had on defense, we might be able to. But I got a feeling Coach Avero can knock that out. But as I said, be hopeful. I will be with you guys throughout the spring, the rest of the winter, spring, summer, into early fall. But the record says itself, you guys. I'm going to be here to keep you updated on all of the moves that Coach Dave Canellis, Dan Morgan, and hopefully Rob Tepper doesn't make. But until the next time, keep prowling the airwaves and keep growling out. Keep pounding.